There's a trail in western North Carolina that many consider to be one of the scariest hikes in the country. The Norton Creek Trail starts on the northern shores of Lake Fontana in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It follows Norton Creek through the site of an old logging community. One of the legends here is that one of the original residents of Norton Creek lost his daughter in the forest, and when he went to look for her, he was killed. Some hikers have reported that they've been lost in the forest here. Just as they've lost all hope, a light appears in the forest and guides them back to the trail and to safety. The second, much older legend is the story of Spearfinger. Spearfinger was a Cherokee witch who would lure children away from the village and soothe them, rocking them and singing them to sleep. She had one finger, which was a piece of sharpened obsidian. When the children were asleep, she would use her sharpened finger to cut out their liver and eat it. So I took what is apparently a side trail off the main trail. It only went maybe 200 yards into the woods, and then it gets really, really steep. So I don't think this is the actual trail. No big deal. I thought this would maybe be a good point to sit down and do maybe an EVP session and see if we get anything. There's still a lot of noise from the water and the wind. My name is Wes. And I'm here partially because I heard the story of a father who lost his daughter in these woods a long time ago. And I've heard that you're still here and that you help hikers who are lost. I just wanted to say that I'm a dad too. I have a daughter, and I know I would be heartbroken if I ever lost her. And I'm sorry that that happened to you. I don't know if there's a way for you to talk to me or to communicate with me. But if there is, I would love to hear from you. I really only have one question. I want to know if, after you died, did you find your daughter? Did she find you? One of the benefits to being out here in the fall is that you can literally hear anything that moves. One of the downsides to being out here in the fall is that you can literally hear everything that moves. These squirrels sound like they weigh about 180 pounds. So I walked maybe 200 yards off the main trail on this side trail and sat down and did a little brief EVP session. I turned around and I'm maybe 25 yards from where I did the EVP session, and I see the remnants of an old house, which I did not see coming up. Pretty spooky. So So I don't know who lived here. I don't know who built this house. I know that the government made a lot of people leave, and they didn't want to. Is that what happened to you? Did you have to leave? Are you still here? Do you still watch over your house? It's a very beautiful place, and I definitely see why you would want to live here. If you want to tell me anything, I'll listen. I'm sorry that you weren't able to stay here. It's interesting to think about the history of this trail as you're walking. Going backwards, the descendants of the families who used to live here before the park came in, they still use this trail to come up on Decoration Day, and they go to the old cemeteries and they clean them up and they put flowers on the graves. And before that, it was used by the white settlers that came in, the farmers going to market and their families going to town. Before that, it was used by the Cherokee as a hunting and trading trail. And I'm sure before that, it was a game trail by the creek. So you think about, the number of feet that have walked this trail, and it's interesting, and it really does give you a sense of history and a sense of all the emotions and all the personal stories that are tied up in a place like this. A lot of people have this idea that ghosts are tied to houses because, that's where life happens, and that's where, tragedy and loss and happiness and things like that happen. But you think about these trails and you think about a story like Spearfinger. Undoubtedly, that was a story that the Cherokee told their kids to keep them from coming down here alone. We have the same stories now, boogeyman stories and things. And undoubtedly those stories sprang up because families lost their kids, to animals or to drowning. So they had to come up with these stories to keep their families safe. The same thing with the settlers here. They lost people here. And on this trail, this trail is this little conduit of history and, personal tragedy, personal loss, happiness, sadness. So I just don't see any reason to believe that energy is not tied to this place, just like it would be tied to a house or a church or a hospital or any of the places that you think of when you think about ghost stories. So I found another foundation that I missed coming up somehow. This one's interesting. It's in about the same shape as the last one. There's more of the walls left. But the majority of the house is just a big pile of rocks. It's all beautiful and moss covered. I think we'll do another quick session before we go back down to the car. Is this your house? Did you have to leave when the government wanted to put the park in? Does it make you angry or sad to see that your house is just a pile of rocks now? All your hard work, and it's just rocks. Do you still come here to watch your house? Okay, I'm gonna leave now. If there's anything you would like to say, you can say it to this little box, okay? I'm sorry that you had to leave your home and your community. Thank you for letting me come into your house. Almost back to the car. Just in the last half mile, I keep having this overwhelming feeling that there's somebody following me. Which is odd. Instead, I've only seen one other person hiking, and it's just that definite sense of somebody being right behind you, and I keep turning around totally expecting to see somebody, so. So it's a rainy Sunday morning. I'm back on the Norton Creek Trail. To be honest, I didn't plan on coming back here. I did some reading and some research over the last couple of weeks, and I thought that it brought a little bit more to this trail, so I thought it was worth a revisit. I did learn a little bit more about the history. This area, the north side of Lake Fontana, part of Graham County, now part of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, was initially a huge prize for the timber industry. So in about 1890, the first logging company set up here, and they named their little village Fontana. It moved a few times over the years, but at one point, Fontana was big enough that they had a school and a medical center, a hotel, even a post office. And then in World War II, the government decided that they were going to dam up the Little Tennessee River to produce hydroelectric power for the war. To give you an idea of how fast this happened, the decision was made in December of 1942, just after Pearl Harbor. By January of the next year, there were about 6,000 people here, surveyors, workmen, supervisors, to start building the dam. So it gives you an idea of how little time people had to get their stuff together, to move, to find new jobs. Initially, the government promised that they would build a road so that the former residents could come back here and access the cemeteries and old homesteads. When they started building the road, they immediately realized it was going to be far too expensive. So instead, they condemned the whole area and they turned it over to the National Park Service to build the Great Smokies. So one of the reasons I wanted to come back to Norton Creek this week was because I did do a little research and I found some information about this old house. Not a lot, but it was enough that I wanted to try to do another EVP session just because I had a little bit of information to go off of. So this house was built by a man named I.K. Stearns. I don't know exactly when it was built. I would assume 1900 or so. That's when the timber industry was really at its peak here. And I would assume that he was evicted along with everybody else in about 1942, 1943. And I do know that after he was evicted, after his community was evicted, that the Park Service used this house as a backcountry facility until the 1970s. So more than likely that explains the old bed frames and things. So I thought, since I have a little bit of information to go off of, we'll do another quick EVP session before we go up to our next destination. I don't know if you remember me. My name is Wes. Is there a Mr. Stearns here? I know that the government made you leave your house. And I know that they promised you a road to get back here. Are you still angry about that? Are you sad that you lost your house? Does it make you angry that after they made you move, the Park Service used your house for 30 years, but you couldn't? Does it make you sad to see your house like this, just in ruins? All right, Mr. Stearns, if you're here, or if anybody else is here, I'll be here for a while. I'm gonna walk up the mountain a little bit, but if you see me, you can talk to me. Lots of noises up here, but there's a creek and there's leaves and there's critters and I assume an airplane flying over. So Mr. Stearns, if you want me to hear you, you may have to be loud. You may have to talk directly into this. And there's another box over there you can talk to. You can move something. I know it's been a long time, Mr. Stearns, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this happened. I don't know if anybody ever told you that, but they did make a beautiful park here that millions and millions of people enjoy every year. And I know that doesn't really help you, but should give you some peace to know that thousands of people have been to your house and find it incredibly beautiful. So thank you, Mr. Stearns. I'm gonna walk up the hill now. So if you see me, feel free to come talk to me. This is the Lower Noland Cemetery. It's very old. Some of the stones have been replaced, so we can see some names. pretty incredible. I don't usually get creeped out in the woods. I've hiked my whole life, but there's something about this place. It's isolated. We're on this tiny little ridge. It's foggy today. There's lots of mist blowing through the trees and all the graves. I don't know how it showed up on camera, but all the graves are sunken in. There's a lot of babies and a lot of graves that are just marked with a rock and the names. It's quiet. I mean, it's peaceful here. It doesn't feel ominous or scary, or I don't feel like I have to leave. But it's sad. It feels sad. I came here today to see if anybody wanted to talk to me. If anybody wanted to tell me what life was like here. I know there are 12 people who were laid to rest here, and I know there's several babies. Was this a good place to live? Were you happy here? Is Mr. Stearns buried here? Is Mr. Stearns buried here? Is Mr. Stearns buried here? I was just at your house trying to talk to you. Are you sad about what happened to your community? Are you sad that your family can't come here and visit you as much as they would want to? Miss Franklin, Miss Stiles, would any of you like to talk to me? It must be peaceful here listening to the creek. I know that creek was a huge part of your life, and I'm sure that in some way you're glad to still be near it. A lot of your families had to leave that creek behind. If you want to talk to me, you can talk to me however you can. You can knock on a tree or push over a rock. Or you can just come talk into this little box. I'll be able to hear you, I promise. Just noticing I have this absolute death grip on my camera. I'm not sure why. It's an unusual place for a cemetery. It's on this very high, very narrow ridge. I mean, the whole thing's maybe 10 or 12 feet wide at the top. So all the graves are, you have to walk right around the edge of the ridge to get by them. It's unusual. I mean, it's a beautiful view. All right, we're going to the last grave, and this one doesn't have a name. A few of them don't, but this grave says known but to God. So this is your opportunity. If this is Mr. Stearns, you can tell me your name right in this little box. If it's somebody else, you can tell me your name, okay? what that was. So quickly, let's recap the Norton Creek Trail. So the first thing I would say is it is absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful hike. You're by the water the whole time. Beautiful old trees, great views. The grade of the trail is not bad. It's an old roadbed. There's obviously lots of neat history here, so highly recommended as a trail. As far as the legends go, there are two major ones that come up again and again. Spearfinger, who was a corrupted Cherokee witch who would lure children into the woods and eat their livers. I didn't have any run-ins with her, possibly because I'm not a child, possibly because my liver probably not that good anymore. The second legend is that a settler who lived here, his daughter was lost in the woods. He went to find her. In some versions of the story, he died of natural causes. In other versions that I've read, he was killed by angry Cherokee. Normally I like to find some sources on this stuff, see if there's any truth to it, but there's just so little about this place at that time. I mean, it was very rough and wild and rugged, and it still is in a lot of ways. I couldn't find any proof of that story or any details to go along with it. What there is proof of is that there was a vibrant community here. In fact, several vibrant communities here. They were displaced by the lake, by the dam, by the national park, and a lot of people had to leave their communities that they had built really with their bare hands. And so there's a lot of tension there, a lot of anger, a lot of sadness. So it's understandable where some of these stories come from. It's understandable that people would look at this place with a certain sense of longing. If you believe in ghosts, I think it definitely makes sense that this is a place that they would want to stay. This is a place where a spirit would linger. Just within Great Smoky Mountains National Park, there are over 200 cemeteries. Some of these are kept up and maintained. Some of them are all but forgotten. And that's a link to history. That's a link to the past. It's a link to your family that once they're gone, they can't really be brought back. This area, Norton Creek, they're trying to keep it going. They come up here on decoration days and stuff, and they clean the graves and they decorate the graves. You can see even today what bad shape that little cemetery was in. It's ancient. So when you hike a place like Norton Creek, look for ghosts. But not just the kind that go boo. You look for the ghosts of the past, because they are everywhere.